Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Interviewing Wednesdays. We're very glad you're with us. It's our special guest interview speaker series during the month of November and December. We'll tell you a bit more about that in just a second. What is today? Today is the 18th of November. We're very glad you're with us. For those people on Zoom, if you have questions throughout the presentation, please just enter them into the chat box. And for those people on Facebook, you can just enter your questions into the comment field. I am monitoring that feed. For those on Zoom, we ask that you use the speaker view, which is what's in the lower left-hand corner, where you see the speaker and well, in this case, there will be no PowerPoint, so never mind that slide. We'll go to the next slide. Please note this event is being recorded and is currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career FW Facebook page and on the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, if you post a comment in the chat box or you have your microphone or camera on, you give consent for your comments, name, and picture to appear. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. I founded Career FW 12 years ago yesterday. I started CareerUSA.org in 2012 to help people outside the DFW area. I've written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search That You May Not Know. It's available on Amazon for 15 bucks. Or if you want to drive by the house, I'll try the Domino's Frisbee method. Throw it in your window as you drive by for $10 a piece. I also facilitate and lead the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. It's been meeting since the late 1990s, and I'll tell you about our upcoming programming this Friday, a very interesting program at the end of this presentation. And I've been a member of the practice interview team since 2017. Well, before we hear from our speaker, we want to just talk about a few things for interviewing. Number one, Mark McDonald, tell us about the pit crew.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, it's afternoon already. What a beautiful day outside. And yeah, I want to talk to you about the pit crew and just say right now we're very busy. So I'm scheduling for next week. Don't let the holiday season throw you off. It'll be a busy season if it's like any other year in the past. Of course, this is 2020, but I'm expecting it to be busy for interviews, and we've done 4, or by the end of the day we will have already done 4 this week and likely do 2 more, so 6 interviews in a week. We are going to work next week, so I am scheduling 1 for next week right now, and so I got a slot for 2 or 3 more. And you know, if you really need to practice on Friday, we probably will not practice on Thursday, but if you really need to practice on Friday, I have a hunch we could probably put a team together to help you out. So don't let the holidays throw you off from providing the information we need to help build your confidence, and that's a job description and a resume. So that's how the pit crew works. You provide the information. We provide a very customized and personalized interview experience, give you a chance to answer questions about how you would approach that exact job that you send in based on your background. We'll give you a chance to answer the tough questions, you know, like, don't you think you're overqualified? I saw Absolute Abby spoke yesterday, so that's on my mind. You know, what are your salary requirements? Why'd you leave your last position? So the pit crew, we focus on helping you build your confidence by, you know, giving you a chance to practice those tough questions. Nobody messes up on the easy ones. It's the more difficult ones that throw you off. So now, not every question we ask you will be a difficult question, but you'll get a good sprinkling of them. I encourage you to practice more than once. It may take a little bit of time before you feel like you have a lot of polish, and you'll know you're confident when you don't really have to think about what the interviewer is going to ask you, and you start thinking about how you can build rapport with the interviewer, the questions that you want to ask to gather information to make your assessment. You'll just go to a whole new plane of preparation and thinking about what you want to get out of an interview. So that's what the pit crew provides. Send that information when you're ready to practice to dallaspitcrew@gmail.com. Jeff has circled and that's the best way to reach me. Some people reach me through LinkedIn, and I'll just send them a note back and say, send your resume and job description to dallaspitcrew@gmail.com. And speaking of LinkedIn, I encourage you to link in with me. All you need to do is let me know a brief note how we met. You know, North Dallas Career Focus Group interview Wednesdays would be fine, and I'll add you to my network. I worked in the Dallas-Fort area most of my career in the telecommunications equipment industry, so electronics, high-tech electronics. But about more than half of my network I've developed since I started doing the pit crew, and they come from all different kinds of backgrounds. So when you link in with me, you get the advantage of my network for your networking. So when you're and the way LinkedIn works, and I didn't realize this until recently, is when you search Facebook, it searches all billion people on Facebook. But when you search on LinkedIn, it only searches your connection. So it benefits you to have a big network or to be connected with people who have a big network. And so that is your search space. Let me say a couple of other things. Besides running the pit crew, I also coach, and I just coach on one question: why did you leave your last position? So for a lot of you, it was COVID, and that's pretty straightforward. For others, it may be a little more complicated, or the interviewer may ask you about the job you had before this one or the one before that. So if that's going to cause you some angst, let's have a conversation, and we'll discuss how to cover it in your situation. Be a confidential discussion. Oh, I forgot to mention that the pit crew is free, and you get a video as well. So there we go.
Thank you very much, Mark. The Interview Success Workshop, Walt.
Good afternoon, everyone. Walt Glass here. So let me ask you a couple of questions here. Are you truly prepared for an interview? How much time have you spent working on your resume compared to the amount of time you spend working on an interview? Do you know what you need to do to get prepared? I ask people if you like to sign up, say, well, I'm not ready yet. I said, what are you going to do till you get ready? So, well, I'm not sure. I said, well, come to the workshop, which is the Interview Success Workshop, and I can give you some great ideas on how you can get ready. What does selling ourselves really mean? I mean, have you thought about how you would do your greeting, your opening, your closing? Have you thought about how you could build rapport with the interviewer? Do you know how to establish a connection? Do you know how to demonstrate your expertise and your value to the company? All this and more with the Interview Success Workshop. You also will get a video of your interview. You must be registered to attend. There's an email address, walt_glass@yahoo.com, which I reserve just for the workshop. I'll be glad to get your email and send you the list of available dates, and we'll get you on the schedule. And what do you say is the price you must pay for blowing the competition away? It's easy to see how happy you'll be when you learn. There's no cost, it's free.
Well, thank you very, very much. Applause, applause, applause. I need to get that sound effect ready to go here for you every time you're up running. Okay, let's see here. So our speaker today is Jack Bick. He's going to talk about clarity when you need it most. Many of you know Jack. For a long time, he ran the workshop up in Allen, Texas at St. Jude for interviewing every Wednesday, or for people in search. Jack's written a couple books I'm sure he'll talk about. So Jack, thank you very much for being with us, and take it away.
Good afternoon, everybody. Glad to see a good crew here. And just switched off. So I think everybody here would agree that it requires clarity at this point in time more than ever. I mean, there's a lot of times when we need to have clarity when we choose our career, when we choose our spouse, things like that. When we make expensive decisions, we have to have clarity that this is the right thing to do. And job search is certainly part of that. Having that kind of clarity can make a big difference, because it gives you confidence, and your ability to have that confidence is seen when you go into an interview. They can tell whether you are really into it and have confidence in yourself, so that they can have confidence in you. So I'd like to ask Leslie, What would you define clarity as?
Well, it's knowing what the job entails, knowing what you can bring to the job, and then interfacing with the employer and getting all that on a granular level.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
for example, if I were to interview for a salesman job, I'm not a salesman. What does that mean, and what can I bring to that job?
Right. But right now, guess what? You are a salesman.
I know. I hate it. Get me employed.
My dad was a CPA, and he always told us that that you were always selling.
I
So
know.
my brother and I turned out to be salespeople. So let's get a couple other people. Richard Joseph, what is your definition of clarity?
For me, clarity is probably understanding the intended role and how that matches to my skill set and my abilities.
Uh-huh. Okay, that's very good. And Nina Yancey, tell me your definition of clarity.
From an interview perspective, my definition of clarity would be being able to clearly articulate the abilities that I do bring to the company in such a way that the interviewer clearly understands there's no ambiguity as to what I am saying, and they clearly understand exactly what I am bringing to them.
Okay. Well, you've all hit on some really good points, but I'd like to expand on what you said. And that is the clarity is how you see your plan working. Being able to articulate is one good thing, but if you don't articulate with a plan in mind, you've got to go beyond that, because you've got to get in to get the opportunity. You can be articulate and nobody is inviting you to talk to them. So you have to have clarity in what your plan is and how it's going to reach to the end for you. Now, as Jeff mentioned, I've written 2 books. One is kind of an extension of the other. The latest one is The Champion Way. And that is a complete, comprehensive, start to finish plan for you to achieve your goal of becoming employed again. Now, I see things as marketing. I was in journalism all my life. I consider myself a journalist, but actually I made most of my money on the business side of these business newspapers, like the Dallas Business Journal. And so marketing is top of mind with me. And I've talked to a lot of people who are come to me and say, I didn't get this job, and I know the person who did, and they're not as good as me. Well, in this situation, they were better than you at something, and that was marketing. They marketed themselves better than you did, or else you would have gotten the deal. So there's 4 steps to any basic marketing program. The first one is know the product. You have to know the product in order to tell people about it. And you need to know that product deeply. Number 2, you have to know the audience. You have to know the audience deeply. Then you have to address the marketplace with the proper materials and the proper strategies and tactics. And then finally, you have to sell. So let's go through those 4 steps. And I think you'll see that following these steps will give you clarity. That's what I began with when I started to write these books. And like I say, the Champion Way gives you what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and why you're doing it. So the first thing is to know the product. What's the product? Christopher, what's the product?
I believe I'm the product.
Yes. And isn't it good to be selling something you know and respect?
Well, yeah, I had a lot of experience with this particular product.
But guess what? We forget things over the years. We usually underestimate ourselves. We don't connect A and B to get to really tell ourselves what we're about. And lastly, we rationalize. Let's be honest, we're not honest with ourselves sometimes. So what I suggest is a deep dive, and the book shows the checklist on how to do that and really reveal a lot of things that you have forgotten. A lot of things that would help you in presenting yourself to a prospective employer. My wife and I right now are doing a little project. We have over 6,000 slides of our life together. And we just celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary. Well, I can't tell you how many things are coming up on those slides that I forgot we did. And it's been a very refreshing and fulfilling task. It's also exhaustive going through that many slides and sitting for that long to get them all organized so that we can put them all on a disk. But knowing who you are is an essential part, and none of us know ourselves as deeply as we should. The better you can go into who you are, the better you're going to be able to answer those questions in the interview. The better you're going to be able to represent yourself to people who can champion for you. So it's essential to go deeper into yourself than you have already. Number 2 is, that's kind of an esoteric thing to do. What you move into for a practical purpose is you take what you learn in that deep dive and you go into writing your star stories. I'm pretty sure, is there anybody who is not familiar with star stories? Good. Situation, task, action, result. This is a beautiful way to simply put what your biggest accomplishments and to make them short. If they don't have impact and brevity, you're going to lose people, especially in the interview. We interview a lot of people at Pit Crew, and almost universally, we have to tell people you need better star stories. Not what you actually happened, but better in terms of the presentation. So I can't tell you how important that is. And the biggest question I get asked is, how many star stories do you need? And here's my answer. You need at least one for every job that you've had. What was the highlight of you being at that company? Secondly, you need a star story for every attribute you're going to give yourself. If you say you're a good communicator, you better have a star story to prove it, or else you're not a good communicator. So that's essential. Believe me, in today's world with the competition we have, it is important that we distinguish ourselves, that we differentiate ourselves. Let me tell you, the star stories having depth of information, being brief, and having impact will differentiate you from the rest of the crowd. Then you go into the second phase, and that is know the audience. So who's the audience? Tom Atkins, who's the audience?
Well, the person you're doing the job interview with, right?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Well, and the person you're doing the interview with, I guess he's the hiring manager would be the generic title.
Yeah, but there's a broader look at it. The audience is the target companies and everybody who works for them. You should pick out at least 5 target companies that you feel through research that you really know. And there's a lot of things that you should know about these companies. The deeper you know these companies, the more you're going to show that you're the person for the job. It shows enthusiasm, it shows interest, it shows that you are willing to do the work to get the job.
Okay.
So I always say, find 20, 25 companies and then deeply investigate these companies and come down to the 5 that you're going to go after. These are your target companies. You can't go after 20 companies in depth. But what you want to know is their history, their vision, their mission. What's their culture? What's their financials? What is who are their competitors? Who are their top executives? You find out about them on LinkedIn and you'll have a good idea of what their culture is. And most of all, you want to know what's the latest news about these companies. Now, where do you get this information? You talk to a lot of people. You go on Resource USA. You read the Business Journal, which is available at almost every library. The Book of Lists. I don't know if you're familiar with the Book of Lists, but that's a lot of good information. The Business Journal publishes a list of top 25, several different categories, one each each week. And then at the end of the year, they put it into a book. And I'm proud to say that I invented that product in 1983. And now every business journal does one, because they can take their work and sell it twice. So it makes a lot of money for the business journals. But all of these are sources. There's one other source, and that's what I call shoe leather research. And that means that you go and visit. Now, in the times of COVID here, they may not be open, but it's worth a try to see if they are. And you can go in, you can talk to them. You can ask the receptionist, what's the culture here? And it gives you a good feel for what this is all about. Most companies will put the what's important to them in their front lobby. So it will give you a lot of information. So just like Yogi Berra said, there's you can learn a lot by just looking around. And then once you know yourself, the product, and you have your star stories put together, and you know the audience, then you go, that's when you do your resume. Because now you've got a lot of information and can help you make that resume stronger. Now, I'm not going to get into the details of that here, because we don't have that kind of time. But I suggest having 3 resumes. One is the selling resume, 1 page with just the absolute highlights of your career. And you may say, I can't do that. I've got a 50-year career and it's all on 1 page. And it's powerful. All the top stuff that I did. And so it can be done. And the way the selling resume starts is to personalize this process. This process, the way the recruiters want you to do it, is very impersonal. You've probably figured this out. You send in a resume and it means nothing because you never hear back from them. It's hard to impress a machine. It's hard to differentiate yourself to a machine, especially a machine that's designed to throw out 80% of the people. And they're gonna have enough people these days apply to be able to throw out 80% of the people. If they don't have that many people applying for it, it's probably a job nobody wants, and you probably don't want it either. So the selling resume is designed to have impact. You've probably heard this before, and actually I tested this against in my own way, that recruiters and hiring managers hardly ever spend more than 6 seconds on your resume. That's a blip, and they're going to make a decision about your life that quickly. So by personalizing it and giving them some insight about who you are and the soft skills that make you who you are, you're going to buy more time. You're going to get more time. So the second kind of resume is a reference resume. This is designed to give to the interviewer after the interview is over. It's a 2-pager, and the only difference is that you have more bullet points for each job that you've had. You add more bullet points so you can get more results or explain fully with a star story, what it's all about, what that career stop meant for your career. And that reference resume is how you set up your LinkedIn profile. So what you're trying to do here is market yourself. Very seldom do you accomplish something. Does somebody marketing to you accomplish something with just one view of it? They say you have to see something 10 times in order to learn it. Well, this is designed to give you at least 3 touches into that company. And so the first one is impact and makes you interesting. Then they go to your profile, LinkedIn profile, and they find out the depth of information. So if you don't get their attention, they may never go to see the depth. And they're not going to read all that depth if you put it in the first thing that they see. This is just how things go. I get a lot of resumes here, and I took those and I went through it as if I were back in my hiring days, because that's what I had to do. My career was dependent on my ability to hire people. If I didn't do a good job of it, those newspapers never would have survived. And guess what? All of the newspapers that I did turnarounds on or founded are still around, even after all the things that have happened to newspapers. But this marketing process works. I'm going to give you an example in a minute. So now you know the product, you've put together your star stories, you know the audience because you've researched them deeply. You've put together 3 resumes, a 1-pager for impact, a 2-pager for depth, and that's what populates your profile on LinkedIn, and that is for depth also. Now it's time for you to move into the marketplace. The book has over 100 checklists for you to refer to and find information. So we're not going to go through all of that today, but I'm going to touch on a few of them. One is the unique selling proposition. That is 3 to 7 words that are your branding. I had a client one time. He was a quality assurance engineer, and he was very dependable. he had never been late, or he'd never been tardy or absent in his entire career, including school, from when he was a little kid. That's dependable. So, but still dependable engineer is not that exciting. So we came up with quality assurance lived daily. Now, let me tell you that he had applied at his target company and been rejected 6 months before he came and took my course and bought my book. And he went back there with his new USP and his new selling. He not only got an interview, he got the job. Now, he was exactly the same person. He had the same abilities as an engineer. What was different? The marketing. Makes all the difference in the world. One of my clients is in IT, and she and I were at a networking event together, and it was a dinner thing, and we sat down, and this man across the table asked her, what do you do? And she said, I build bridges, technology to people. In fact, in one situation, I was able to connect the people, the business people with the IT people, and we got our month-end reporting down from 2 days to 30 seconds. So she not only took her USP, which was building bridges, technology to people, but she made it real by giving an example, a result. It turned out that that guy was the speaker that night. He was a retired brigadier general, and he used her opening. He referenced it throughout his speech. And and she had never been to that event before. Everybody there wanted to talk to her afterwards. It was magic. And that's what a good USP can do for you, unique selling proposition. In the book, we also have the or the communication formula, which I've been using for almost 45 years to communicate with people, because it's a structure that makes it fast, impactful, and gets results. We don't have time to go into that too deeply, but the acronym is AIR, A-I-R. The A is attention. The best way to get attention is to show interest in the other person. Show interest in the other person. If you are trying to build up a group of champions who will advocate for you, and you approach them with, I need, they're gonna back away. But if you approach them from a standpoint of, what do you do at this company? How important is your job? Where does it fit in? Can you help me? And then you can go into, Can you help me with understanding the culture and the process, et cetera, et cetera? So the communication process is very important. It's always about the other person first. Then you get around to what you need. And that's what you need to keep in mind as you move into what I call the conversation, which is the interview. But you need to have, of those 5 companies, you need to develop a personalized strategy and individualized tactics in order to get into that company. I've had some of my clients follow people from a target company to lunch because it was a company that was locked down. So he followed them to lunch and he got an opportunity to get in and he got the job. So developing and cultivating champions is the best way for you to hit the marketplace. And you have 5 specific targets, not 20 or 100 or whatever. This isn't a numbers game. This is a quality game. What is the quality of your approach to the company? All this should be developing clarity as far as how you're going to get the end result. You know people, you know yourself, you know the marketplace, you know the audience, and now you know you have several ways outlined in the book for you to have tactics to reach into those companies. Believe me, those companies have needs. They need you. If you can prove you are mission critical to them, you're going to get a job. And once you are in and you impress them, they're going to invite you, or you can invite yourself to an interview. You don't have to wait for them. Is there a book that says that you have to wait for them? Is there a book that says you have to be subservient and just sit there and answer their questions? No. You can take initiative. And in most cases, they want people who will take initiative. They want proactive people. That's what makes their world go round. And you know what? That hiring manager didn't get there by being a wallflower. He didn't get there by being subservient or submissive. He or she got there because they took initiative. They were proactive. They made things happen. And they want like people. Okay? Now, the conversation. This is where, as Walt said, the rubber hits the road. This is where you're selling. This is a selling process. And so you want to go about it in a way that's going to get you a result. And I'll tell you the 3 factors that I think are most important. When you get into that opportunity, the interview does not start when you arrive at their place or you turn on your Zoom. It starts when you set up. your interview. You should be asking these questions: who, what, where, when, why, and how. If you don't know the answers to these questions, you're at a disadvantage. And somebody is probably going to ask these questions and be in a better position to get the job. So who, you want to know who's going to be in there and their contact information so that you can send a thank you letter. In fact, I encourage my clients to send a thank you note prior to the interview. Isn't that a way to set yourself up to be noticed? Absolutely. When you thank them and show your appreciation for just being selected for an interview, that's important. But you want to ask who's going to be in there and what's their contact information. They have all this information already. And you're supposed to be equal going into an interview. So you should have this information also. The second thing is who and what style of interview is it going to be? Is it going to be a one person or a panel or a presentation? Whatever it's about, you don't want to be surprised. You want to know in advance. Where? We all get the address, but do we get the room number and what entrance to go in? I had one client who was going over to Erickson and he couldn't find the right entrance. And he was 15 minutes late because he hadn't asked. When? Most people get they will get the start time, but they should also get the end time, because you've got to plan your timing. You're going to have a different pace for a 15-minute interview than you do for an hour and 15 minutes. Why? Why did they select you? Wouldn't that be a great thing to know ahead of time? Because then you know what they're buying. You're there to sell, but you don't know until you get in there what they're buying. So this question asked ahead of time will tell you what they're buying. And then how is the room going to be set up? One time I walked into an interview and there were 17 people in a horseshoe. That would have been kind of daunting had I not known about it ahead of time. It was still kind of daunting, it kind of threw me back, but I was prepared, so it didn't have too much effect. The second, that's the pre-interview information that you should have. The next is every interview has three parts: the beginning, the middle, and the end. The beginning for you should be an opening statement. And different coaches will tell you different processes, but they're all pretty much the same. You want to get across your enthusiasm. You want to tie that enthusiasm to something you know about the company. Impress them right off the bat with the fact that you've done the interview, the research into who they are. You did the work, use it. Then you give them a basic idea of why you think you are the candidate. You've seen their job description. Just give them an overview of how you see yourself meeting the needs of that job description. And finally, and most importantly, ask what I call the trigger question. There's a lot of different questions, but the one I like the best is, what are the 3 characteristics that make people successful in this job? By asking that question, you are now asking them what they're buying. Remember, you're in sales. This is a sales situation. If you find out the 3 things that they feel make people successful, then you can hone in on those and give them star stories for those. You're also kicking off the middle part of the interview, and that is what I call the conversation. Now, in the conversation, in the middle part, you have 2 requirements. Number 1, answer with star stories. They don't want generalizations. They don't want situations. They want to know what you accomplished. If you say, well, we were over budget on that. Well, they don't know whether you were over budget by 1% or $7. You got to tell them. That's what they want to know. They want a number. Business is numbers. The more numbers you can feed them, the better off you're going to be. The second requirement you have is to ask questions yourself. If you just sit there and answer their questions like a firing squad, you're not going to gain their respect. In this day and age, with as much coaching that is going on, you have to be better than everybody else. And you better be really better than everybody else. And they're going to be more impressed with the questions that you ask than the answers you give. So show them that you know, from your research and from you knowing the situation, playing off of their questions, having prepared questions, that you are sharp and that you can ask questions, and you show it that way. Then as you go into the ending, you want to you want to close the sale. You know, if a salesman's trying to sell you something and they don't try to sell it to you, you kind of feel like, hold it. Why did I come in here to ask you about all this stuff? You gotta ask for the sale. So how do you get into this last part, the closing? The best way is to take the top 3 things that you talked about in the interview and summarize those and give them an R from your star stories, a result for each one. You said you wanted a good communicator. Here's an example. You said you want somebody with good attention to detail. Here's an example. You want somebody who has had such and such an experience. Here's the experience I had. Then you ask basic questions like, what is the process from here on to making a decision? Because you don't want to walk out of there without knowing that. You want to know where you stand. If they're not going to hire you, you want to move on. You got other target companies. If they are impressed by you, you want to know that. Then you can ask, am I moving on to the next level, or is there anything that would prevent me from moving on? And then the last and most important question to ask is, do you see me in this role? If they say yes, hard close it. When will I get an offer letter? Where will I be working? Things like that, hard close it. If they say no, then you want to find out what is missing. But if you just ask, well, why aren't you going to hire me? Their defense mechanism's going to kick in. You want to take the blame for not putting enough information out there for them to make a decision. So you say something like, I'm sorry, I must have missed something. So why don't you tell me what you see is missing so that you know the completeness of who I am. And then when they tell you, you don't answer it right away. Maybe they say, well, you don't have the technical knowledge. This is very important. You should say, if I can show you I have the technical knowledge necessary to do this job, will you hire me? Because if they say yes, you're ahead of everybody else because you now have a qualified yes to being hired. And they will probably be very impressed that you did that. Then and only then do you answer their objection. And then you close. You said, I've proven that I have the technical knowledge. You said you would hire me. When do I start? So the next thing is negotiating. You should always say, is there room for negotiation? And unfortunately, most women don't want to do this. They don't like negotiation. But that's one of the reasons that women aren't being paid as much as men. So you want to go out there and say, is this negotiable? I just had a client who got a job. She had been making a certain amount of money. They gave her an offer at $10,000 less than what she had been making. And it was less than she could live on. So she said, is this negotiable? And they said, well, we'll go back and see if there's any more money, but we don't think so. Well, they came back with $5,000 more. And they set up a bonus system for her to make another $5,000. So she got to her number because she knew she could get those bonuses. Had she not asked, is this negotiable, she'd be struggling to pay her bills. She would be fully employed, yet not being able to pay her bills. She had the confidence in herself to ask for that. Now, if you get into negotiations, they don't want to know your needs. It has to be based on what you bring to the table. And there's 3 things that you should look at. What is the scope of the work? Second of all, what's the level of responsibility? And last, what's the importance to the company? If you can show that those are all high, then you should be able to get more money. In negotiating, you don't want to tell how much you were making before. The only thing you should give up is this is the what I'd be willing to work for, and give them a range. I think with this scope of work, level of responsibility, and importance to the company, the range on this should be X to X plus. And that'll put you in a good position to negotiate. But always negotiate. When I was being hired to start these business journals, they came in with a low number and they said, well, you have to take some of the risk with us. So I came back the next day and I said, okay, you want me to perform at least this level. Ideally, you want me to perform at higher than that. So here's a bonus situation. And basically, if I hit all the numbers, I was going to double my salary. Well, I missed it by a little bit and I was short. I didn't get the last bonus point, which was worth $4,000. However, when they came back at the second year and told me what my base salary was, it was 3 times the base salary I had before for the first year. So these people were very fair, and they still put a bonus on top of it. But if I hadn't come back with that, hey, I think this is more fair, I wouldn't have made that money. So you always have to take a proactive stance and ask them, is this negotiable? And in any negotiation, you have to be willing to walk away. I never go into a negotiation if I really am not going to walk away. I once was buying an automobile. This was when the minivans first came out. And we were negotiating back and forth. And the guy finally says, Lee Iacocca is going to sell every one of these minivans he can make. So you better take the deal that I'm offering. And I said, you've got the wrong idea here. We're not arguing about how much money Lee Iacocca is going to make. We're arguing over how much you're going to make tonight. In other words, I'm willing to walk away and you will have spent 2 hours with me for nothing. And he came down to my price. What he didn't know is we wanted the car immediately because we were leaving the next day on vacation, and our other car was not going to make it. But he didn't know that. Information is king, right? So what I hope I've done here today is to give you a clear idea of a plan that can work, that you can see from the start the light at the end of the tunnel. If you don't have that, you need to get it. Otherwise, you're just floundering and going from this idea to that idea, back and forth, and not accomplishing anything. So just this week, one of my clients landed a job. He had, in the interview, he was not able to get his opening statement out until about 5 minutes into the interview, but he finally got it out there, and he got a chance to ask the trigger question, and he said the whole thing changed. The guy that was interviewing him said, "Man, that's insightful on your part to ask that." And he says, "I should know the answer to that, but I don't." So he said, "You've made me think, and that's good. That's what I want." They came back a couple days later with the offer, and it was 3 pay grades higher than where he was. So he didn't even have to ask it to negotiate. But he got that job 2 weeks after he finished my course, which is based on this book. So, any questions?
If anybody has a question, either you can put it in the chat box or on the comment field on Facebook, or you can just unmute your mic and ask, please.
I've got a question. It's Melinda Wright.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Hi, Jack. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Thanks for having this. Appreciate it. So the book, I joined late. I apologize. So the book, which book is this that you wrote? The Mission Critical book, is that the one that you're talking about? Oh, The Champion Way?
The Champion Way, land in 4 weeks. If you buy it from Amazon, you have to have the whole title.
Okay.
The title and the subtitle.
And I've got a couple more questions, but I'm going to wait to see if anybody else has questions.
Well, that's polite of you.
Anybody else have a question? If not, Melinda, go ahead.
Okay.
I don't have a question, but Jack, I just wanted to say that I thought that your suggestion of sending a pre-thank you email was, great. I just never thought about that. And it seems like such a, almost standard thing to do. And now I feel like I'm dumb because I've never done it before. So anyway, thank you. I thought it was a great idea.
Here's a better idea. If you can, hand deliver it. Now, that's not practical these days with the COVID, but
Yep.
when we get back to normal, and we will, that's the way to do it.
Yeah. I had just never thought of sending thank you email before the interview. I send
Yeah.
one after, but just the idea of sending it before, I thought, again, just a really great idea. So thank you for the suggestion.
And a differentiator. I mean, that's,
Right.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the unique selling point, right? That's part of what's all wrapped in there.
Yeah, let me tell you this. If you are not one of the top 3 candidates, and usually there's 5 to 10 candidates, if you are not one of the top 3, you're not going to get that job. It's too hard to hop over all those other people. You have control about how well you do in the interview, but you do not have control over how well they do. And more than likely, if they're already ranked in the top 3, they're going to do well enough to stay there. That's why you have to distinguish yourself, differentiate yourself before the interview. That's why it's so important to do the research into yourself. Sharp star stories. Do the research into the companies deeply. Have a good resume, you know, that has impact, followed up with your LinkedIn, and have that 2-pager in your hip pocket. And then as you go forward, following all the right rules to get champions to work for you, to give you information about the company and to advocate for you inside the company. So, did you have another question?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
So we talked about a lot of things today, and so everything we talked about, is there more of a deep dive then in the book? So what you've talked about, I'm going to find in the book, and there's going to be more of a deep dive. Like, for example, we talk about the 1-page resume, you know, being the selling resume for impact. Is there, for example, an example in that book?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And then,
And
so everything we've talked about, this is going to be, when you read the book itself, it'll be that deep dive.
right.
Okay.
It's it's what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and why to do it.
Okay. And then those 3 books that you talked about, Research USA, Business Journal, Book of Lists, those are all typically accessible through the library? Is that a correct
Yes.
statement? Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
If I could, I'll plug in a word for Jack. He talks about his book, but he also, let me put myself here on video while I continue on. But he also coaches, and it's an extremely reasonable price. And I will tell you, if you take Jack's offer as a coach, he'll stick with you through this thing, and he'll help you walk through all of those pieces that are in the book. And I can tell you this, when I read a book, I'm not going to do everything in the book. But if I've got somebody helping me go through it, answering questions, guiding me, doing that sort of thing, and I can tell you without a doubt, I consider Jack the best at his business and coaching and helping you get that job and making that job search shorter. So I hardly recommend that you have a conversation with Jack. If you're not a client of his, talk with him and see what he has to offer just besides the book itself. I think it will be one of the most significant decisions you make in your job search.
Any other questions? Anybody else have any other questions? All right. Well, yeah, go ahead.
I have an offer to make, Jeff.
Okay, go ahead.
If the people here today will send me their resume, I will do a free review of that resume and send them an example of the selling resume.
And what's the best email address, or should they send it via LinkedIn, or what's the best way to do that?
You can send it via LinkedIn, but sometimes I get those and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I can't download them. So the best email is CC, that's cat, Bizman, BIZMAN, at sbcglobal.net. And if you want a book, please give me a call and I'll get you an autographed copy of it, 972-741-6258. That's 972-741-6258.
Laura, thank you very much. And Nina, thank you for putting in the email address and the phone number in the chat box. So if you need to, you can copy it right out of there. Here's a copy of Jack's book. The book in the middle is the one he's talking about. The book on the left is the very first book he wrote, what, 2 years ago?
Yeah, well, it came out about 3 years ago.
3 years ago, okay. And then, so the Mission Champion was what came out this spring. So that's the current book, and that's what he uses right now. You can find those on Amazon. I went and found it by just typing in Jack Bick. So just type in Jack Bick, and you know, the Champion Way popped right up for me.
Yeah, but if you do it, if you put the name of the book, you have to have the whole name, the title and the subtitle.
Great. All right, well, Jack, thank you very much. Great information. Just a few more things popping up. We Career, if you have been Career USA, we've got some other training that's going on. Tomorrow, interview for Effective Resume Thursday. Locke Alderson will be joining Carol Burkell talking about resumes. So join us tomorrow at 1 o'clock. And then on Friday, I talked about the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. Our speakers are going to talk about the psychological impact of being unemployed. We have a PhD, and it's going to be a sort of a moderated thing. This event will not be recorded because we want people to be able to express themselves and talk about, you know, what it's like being unemployed. So the event will not be recorded and it will be deleted off of Facebook immediately after the event's over. So you have to watch it live this Friday. We will not have any sessions the week of Thanksgiving. So everybody have a wonderful Thanksgiving next week. So we'll be off the entire week. But then starting up after Thanksgiving on Tuesday, December 1st, our LinkedIn presentation will be with Terry Sullivan, how to create a LinkedIn brand that tells your key contacts and prospects who you are, what you do, and how you help. Just note that Terry does not allow his presentations to be recorded. So if you want to watch it, you'll have to watch it live. On December 2nd, the next special guest interview speaker series, Gail Bridgman will be talking about interviewing. Many of you may know Gail from the Frisco Career Transition Workshop, where she talks about interviewing. And she also is a longtime employee at Lee Heck Harrison, helping companies and helping people who've been laid off in their business. So she'll be with us on December 2nd. Upcoming, as we mentioned, the 25th, we won't have any session next week, interviewing on December 2nd. And then the other two speakers we have in December, Walt Glass will be talking about distinctive interviewing. And on the 16th, Tony Bashera from Babin Associate will be talking about the 10 biggest mistakes that people make during, 10 biggest mistakes people make during interviewing. So join us then. We'll then take off the week of Christmas or New Year's, and then we'll be back in January. When we come back in January, Mark and Walt will start up their 13-part workshop again. Who knows, it could be 14 or 15 parts. I know they're working on what the new format will be, or if they want to change anything from the first time we've done it. So we'll start that up again back in January. This session has been recorded. It is going to be on the Career FW Facebook page, and I'll be uploading it to the Career USA YouTube channel later this afternoon. So it'll be up in a couple hours. Please follow us on Facebook. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you'll find out about all the latest programming and things that we've got up online. If you go to YouTube, this is what it looks like. Click on playlist, and don't click on the video, but underneath the video screen, click where it says that red arrow, view full playlist. And when you do that, up will come all the different sessions that we have currently recorded. So you can go and you can see those listed there. These are all the sessions that are currently there that Walt and Mark put together as 13 episodes. They're actually on there twice because we did it in spring and we've done it in fall. And all these special guest speakers will also be on the YouTube channel for you to go back and view anytime you'd like to do that. Please remember, Career FW is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We have no full or part-time employees. Jack, Walt, Mark, myself, we're all volunteers. We're all here to help you land your next great opportunity. Career FW doesn't pay us, doesn't pay anybody to help Career FW get going. Career FW survives on donations. Please consider, if you will, make a donation when you get your next great opportunity. And if your company happens to offer matching funds, please look us up. We are registered. Let us know. And if you don't happen to see us, please reach out to me. I will get our name added, as I've done to a couple of times in the past. So thank you very much for joining us today. Jack, once again, thank you very, very much.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're very welcome. And Jack's information is in the chat box. If you need to save that, you can click on the little 3 dots at the bottom of the chat box, and it'll say save chat, and then you can save it someplace you'd like to, so you can have all the details. So everybody have a great week, and we'll see you hopefully later in the week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone
Thank
have a
you all.
wonderful Thanksgiving.